Uh, Mr. Clutch, Jerry West, also known as the NBA logo, has passed away at age 89. The NBA Finals going to Game 3, and the Dallas Mavericks are looking to not get swept, hopefully. And Dan Hurley rejects the LA Lakers head coaching job, and to me is a no-brainer decision to reject that. And the WNBA, more so, the Olympics team is blackballing, or I should say whiteballing, Caitlin Clark. I'm Matthew Raridan, and this is Total Sports Talk Beyond the Lights. What's going on, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Total Sports Talk Beyond the Lights. I'm your host, Matthew Raridan, and with me today are both of my co-hosts. First, I've got David Street,
What's up, everybody?
and secondly, we've got Ed Smith.
Welcome, y'all.
Guys, we mourn the loss of another great one. It seems like nowadays we are waking up and seeing news of a lot of great athletes that we've been fortunate enough to either watch or at least told so many stories to from our parents or even grandparents are passing away. Jerry West is one of them, 89 years old, did pass away today. He lived a very, very successful life in college basketball to the NBA as an executive. Jerry West has done it all. He's one of those from a generation that pretty much they've accomplished so much. We saw that, we've seen it still with Bill Russell, with all that he's done too as a player, as a coach, you name it. But Jerry West is an all-time great, and it's crazy because growing up, it was one of the stats that it seemed like I was one of the only people that knew around where I lived, and I don't know how a lot of people didn't know it. The fact that he was the NBA logo, there's still a lot of people today that don't know that, and I know it's not a very, very important thing, but Jerry West to me is that's one of the key stats or key facts that I know is that he is the NBA logo, and he should continue to be the NBA logo. But Jerry West was more than just an NBA logo. And Ed, you want to kind of tell us some of your fond memories and maybe some key stats about Jerry West?
Well, probably my favorite stat of all time for Jerry West is the fact that he is the only NBA player to win a finals MVP losing on the losing team. That, in and of itself, is just a phenomenal respect for the amount of just pure talent, uh, the uh, the ability to play the game at a level that it is recognized even when his team loses, everybody knows he's the best guy on the floor. And when you go from that to transitioning to other parts of basketball than just being a player, I think that can be even harder than just being a player and being a coach or being a player that mentors some of the young guys coming up. The fact that he was able to parlay a career in which a, he was voted to the All-Star game every year that he played and then turn that into front office success, that just encompasses the fact that Jerry West is one of the founding fathers of modern basketball. There's no way around it because without him, we would not have everything that we currently enjoy as far as the NBA. Because without him, we would have never gotten to the point where the ABA became part of the NBA. We wouldn't have gotten to the Lakers, with the Lakers Celtics of the 80s. And then in 95, he was the Uh, he was the executive of the year, in which he won it again after that, almost 20 years, almost another 9, 10 years after that. So those things are what stand out to me, because yes, he is a phenomenal player, but he was such an ambassador for the game, and knew how to parlay the care of the players, the game, and uh, how to advertise it to the masses, where we all enjoy it now, and not just the select few that see it in their respective cities.
Yeah. I mean, Jerry West, plain and simple, had one of the best basketball minds of all time. And certainly, while it is not uncommon for players to have successful careers as executives, it is extremely rare players who are actually great, at playing. It's extremely rare for those kinds of players to have successful executive careers. Um, Point blank, Michael Jordan, phenomenal player, best basketball player of all time. Horrible, horrible, horrible owner for the Charlotte Hornets. And in fact, like, he was so horrible that the only good thing that Michael Jordan did had nothing to do with, like on court basketball playing. The only good thing that Michael Jordan ever did was bringing back the Charlotte Hornets name. But other than that, he was a terrible owner for them.
Then you got Larry Bird with the Pacers. But Larry Bird, though, is a little different scenario. But yeah, Jerry West, he Mountaineer, West Virginia, Mountaineer. He really is very well known there. Gosh, there was another point that I really wanted to bring up about Jerry West, and the thought just slipped my mind right now. But uh, he will be missed. He will be very missed, and I know they did a moment of silence for him at the finals game tonight, and just as they should, because he is a legend of the sport. So, thoughts and prayers go out to Jerry West's family, friends, anyone that knew him, the Lakers organization, you name it. So, Jerry West, you'll be missed, and we will continue to look at the logo, and we'll see you.
I have I have one more thing to add, and I just learned this today. But apparently, Jerry West actually at one point was the I think the general manager of the Memphis Grizzlies, and it was under Jerry West where the Grizzlies won their first ever playoff game. Did not know that until today.
Yeah, and that was when he won his Executive of the Year of 2004, on top of the 8 NBA championships that he won as an executive.
Yeah, he did pretty good.
That's the most championships won as an executive, right? Like the most ever at that position.
I can't say for certain, um, because part of me wants to take a look at that list and see where Pat Riley sits.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
fair.
Yeah, but what is it? Eight. Eight is
8.
is pretty damn good.
Yeah,
It's eight
yeah.
more than
Exactly.
I. Eight more than me.
14-time All Star, 8-time executive champion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
I mean, like I said, like Jerry West was not like he wasn't just one of the best players of all time. Like he was one of the best basketball people of all time.
yes, very well said.
Yep. Yeah. But the NBA finals are happening right now as we are speaking, right as we are doing this show, and the Dallas Mavericks are looking to avoid a sweep. I know that it's only 2-0 right now, the series, but they need to win one. They absolutely need to start by putting their right foot in front of their left and winning this game, especially at home. This is where you could really start swinging some momentum a little bit more in your favor, because playing in front of your home crowd does change a lot. So I expect to see Dallas kind of put it in a different gear here, hopefully, and change it. I know last I saw going into halftime, they had a 1 point lead. So this is key for Dallas. Dallas needs to win this. I know that's the obvious statement there, but it's true. This Celtics team is deep. They from top to bottom, they are a deep team that you do not want to dig this hole even deeper.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, and I think like when you look at the Mavericks, there's really two things that are ultimately going against them. Their number two guy, Kyrie Irving, has been playing like crap. I don't know how he's playing right now, but I know in the first two games he's actually played like crap. And they have they have no bench at all. Their bench has been practically non-existent at this point. Again, at least in the first couple of games.
Yeah, Kyrie is he basically called out the Boston fan base and then didn't back it up one lickety split. And it was so bad that the Boston Garden, I will continue to call it that, the Boston Garden showed his face on the jumbotron every chance they got, every chance they could get to say, "Well, Kyrie said you weren't as loud as he thought you'd be," and he was met with several chants of "Kyrie sucks" uh, by that fan base, and at some point it looked to rattle him, which at this level of basketball, you wouldn't think that a crowd could rattle a player, especially of that stature, but it really did seem to do so. He was 0 for Boston from behind the 3-point line, and it was baffling to see him not rise to the occasion, especially for somebody that is supposed to be the guy that's helping the guy. And he just was nowhere to be found. So far tonight, he's got 20 points up to halftime. We'll see how the rest of the game goes. He just, I guess, feels more comfortable being in Dallas with a little bit of home cooking uh, versus being up in Boston with the clam chowder.
Yeah, I don't really know what's home cooking for Kyrie anymore. I mean, he's traveled around the NBA a good amount, and he has become, unfortunately, kind of like a cancer to a lot of these teams that he's been on. But Kyrie is a tremendous athlete. But this Mavericks team to me is the most roller coaster team that I've seen in a while. That especially a team that's made it to the finals because in this playoffs alone, I mean, at first going into the playoffs, they looked like that team that didn't know how to click, having two pretty much stars with Luca and Kyrie. And then when it came to the Western Conference Final, we finally saw a team click. We saw Kyrie and Luca click. They understood their roles and everything, and they looked unstoppable against the Timberwolves. They really did. And then here they are against the Celtics, and I do want to give the Celtics their flowers too. This is the Celtics we're talking about. They've made a lot of teams look like they don't know how to play basketball, but the Mavericks once again just looked really discombobulated, and they don't know their assignments. They don't know their roles, and it's only pretty much been Luca doing everything. And Kyrie's been to the championships before too. He's won an NBA Finals. You expected to see a lot more out of him, and it seems like Game 3 he is showing that side of him once again. But will it stay? Will it continue to be like that? Because they're going to need him to. Because facing an 0-2 deficit, there's only been 5 teams in the NBA all time that have overcome an 0-2 deficit, and that's the 21 Milwaukee Bucks, the 2016 Cavaliers, which Kyrie was a part of and hit the game-winning shot against the Golden State Warriors, the Miami Heat in '06, the Trailblazers in '77, and the Celtics of 1969. So only 5 teams, and if you want to make it 6, Kyrie, you're going to have to step it up.
Was Al Horford on that team?
Al Horford on the '69 Celtics, he might have been actually.
Very funny. No, I think he was helping my Gators win back-to-back titles.
Nice. So the Celtics, they have been a beast on the road, and that's what Kyrie and Luka have to watch out for. They are undefeated on the road, and coming into Dallas, you know, they have taken Dallas's best shot in the first quarter, and Dallas was up by 10 points. And you said it's a 1 point lead at halftime. That's that just tells me that they were able to counterpunch in that first half, and it's getting to be scary time for the Mavericks at this point, uh, especially knowing the status of Porzingis going into this game. For those that hadn't seen it, Porzingis is out game three with that left leg injury, which
What is
was
it? What's the actual injury, Ed?
it is a torn medial retinaculum, allowing dislocation of the posterior tibialis tendon in his left leg.
We all definitely knew what that was.
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought it was too.
Yeah, I mean, it was either that or a sore throat, whatever.
Yeah, it was, or my favorite is a bone contusion. That they always love to throw out the bone contusion.
Mhm.
Yeah, that is just a way long way of saying, "Oh, you pulled a muscle in your ankle."
You hurt your leg, okay.
Oh, it's your leg.
But it's the rare injury, you know, it's so rare, we've never seen it. Well, the reason why we've never seen it is because no one can pronounce it. So it's but probably happened before, but they just say leg injury.
Yeah, all encompassing leg injury.
Yeah, we don't need to get all technical with the names here. You know, it's like a when you're talking about a flower. You know, just say the name we know it is. You don't need to go and talk about the family it belongs to. But yes, it is injury that they do say is rare. I'm going to believe them here. And Porzingis wanted to play. I mean, he wanted to do his best, and I admire him for that. It's the NBA Finals. The last thing you want to do is miss a game. And if the Celtics lose, he's just going to think it's because I wasn't there, even though he knows it's a team sport. It's not just him, but missing a guy, especially what Porzingis did in Game One, it does kind of hurt you a little bit not having him there. So that is important to note.
Yeah, and the player that has seemed to step up with Porzingis having these issues is Drew Holiday.
Yes.
He has really stepped up, and if we go back and look at it, let me ask you guys this: do you know if any other point guards that won championships with two different teams?
Let's see here. Point guards. Point guards.
So, if uh, to my point, if Drew Holiday wins the championship with the Celtics this time, that would be two different teams that he won championships with as the starting point guard, and that's rare
Jason
in the
Kidd was
NBA.
close. But
Who
that didn't end up
who was
working.
what team did Drew Holiday win a championship
The
with? Ed?
Bucks.
The
The,
Bucks when
the
they
Okay,
Bucks.
I
overcame.
remember that now.
Yeah, so that yeah, now you're gonna have me thinking
Yeah.
Ed this whole time. There's probably a lot of players out
Mhm.
there. We just
Yeah,
can't
no, there's tons.
yeah, we just can't think of
Well,
who they are.
Well, I mean, certainly the Celtics have been getting contributions from many of their players. Drew Holiday, Jalen Brown, Jason Tatum, and in most areas. I mean, Jason Tatum has been shooting absolutely horribly from the field the past two games, and while I find it difficult to criticize a head coach of a team who's ahead in the finals, I must say I don't understand why Joe Mazzulla gave Jason Tatum the most shots in game two. I don't understand why he did that at all, especially when other guys can fill that shooting role like Jalen Brown and like Drew Holiday. But at the same time, Coach Mazzulla might be onto something because, and I don't have the exact numbers, but this is such a weird freaking stat. But apparently, the Celtics have a winning playoff record when Jason Tatum shoots under 40%. It's just like, I don't think I have ever seen a team do so well with its number one guy shooting like shit. Just gonna say it, shooting
Sports
like
hockey.
yes. Just shooting like shit. And frankly, I think that's a very bad look for Dallas Mavericks head coach Jason Kidd. I mean, the other team's number one option is shooting like garbage. I don't want to say he's playing like garbage because he is doing well in other areas like rebounding and passing, but he's shooting absolutely, horribly. And like not playing like how a number one guy should be playing. Let's just say that, right? And then meanwhile, your number one guy is playing great, as great as he can, as great as we know he is, and yet your team is right now down in the series. Now, I don't think Dallas barely having any depth is his fault entirely, because that mainly falls on the general manager. But at the end of the day, man, you're still the head coach. Like, what are you doing? The other team's number one guy, like I said, isn't playing like how a number one guy should, in my opinion, and yet you can't seem to find a way to solve that.
I love the quote that came out, and they've been referring to this quote a bunch. And I I'm not sure if Tatum said this at a press conference, but it was brought up. And the quote is, "It doesn't take 25 points to play a good game." And Tatum is really leaning into that because he's been doing the other things well to help the other guys that he has on his team that can go ahead and get the points, let them go ahead and do that. And he's willing to take a back seat. Credit to him for being able to put his ego aside enough to let his teammates around him score more than him, which is something we never saw from the likes of, say, I don't know, Russell Westbrook or or anybody like that, or James Harden or Kevin Durant. Those guys, they feel like they can only contribute if they score. Tatum is out there contributing in ways that have nothing to do with putting the ball in the bucket.
I'm so glad that you had brought that point up, Ed, because that was going to be my next point here. I'm actually proud of Jason Tatum with what he's doing because of what happened 2 years ago against the Warriors in the finals. Tatum could have came into this finals a different kind of with a different attitude. But where Boston has thrived, and in my opinion, is they helped the supporting cast to take that weight off of Jason Tatum's shoulders. And in all honesty, the Celtics deserve to win this finals because they saw what happened when they lost the finals 2 years ago, and they made their team better by having a better supporting cast for Tatum. So, big shout out to the Celtics for doing that and Tatum because he could have went into this series with a different mentality, but instead he's playing a little selfless, but he knows that he has a more supporting cast there to help him out too. So yeah, we'll stay tuned with that game as it is happening as we are talking right now. So for those of you who will be listening to this, you already know the outcome.
Yeah.
Congrats, you guys are future tellers, your sidekicks. But for us, we are watching it live as we speak. But to continue on to the NBA, I know it may seem kind of old news, but Dan Hurley rejects the job for the LA Lakers, and we had to talk about this because we had talked about it. Well, Ed and David did on Friday in regards to this, and that day it sure as heck seemed that he was going to be taking this job. It seemed like he was flying to LA on a one-way ticket, and he was not going back. So, but since then, it has all changed. It has been a 180. Hurley rejects the job, and he's going back to UConn. And I think we will be unanimous here saying good for you, Dan Hurley. This was the right decision.
Yeah, I mean, go to a job where you're automatically on the hot seat, or stay at a job where you're the king of campus. Gee, such a tough decision, right?
Yeah, I mean, we saw it with Coach K. I mean, if anything, that was the blueprint right there: is
Yeah.
follow what Coach K did, and we
Well,
saw his success.
college guys can be just college guys. And Coach K really embodied that
Mm-hmm.
uh, because he had his opportunity to go to the league. And he was like, no, I'm good. Because with Coach K, and I feel very much the same way about Dan Hurley, he's able to affect the kids coming up more than handle the egos of multimillionaires that make more than he does uh, on a basketball team. He can affect those kids' lives. He can affect them in basketball. He can affect them in so many more ways while maintaining the level of success of his program at UConn versus going to the Lakers, which would be a no win scenario in a win now league. And with so much uncertainty with the Lakers, how how do you take that job and think that you really are going to be there the 10 years, well, 8 years that they were going to wind up offering him for that job?
This is going to sound very random, but I think it does. I think it ties in perfectly to what you're talking about, Ed. But didn't Coach K play? Did he play at Army or did he coach Army? Like I know he's affiliated with Army somehow.
He coached at Army.
Yeah. So I feel like his brief time at Army like really taught him a life lesson about I don't know, not kind of like just being committed where you're at, like not abandoning people,
Hmm.
just being committed to where you're at. If that makes any sense.
Absolutely. There's a saying out there uh, that says, "Be passionate with what you're good at," because you're going to wind up being passionate about so many more things as time goes on. So be passionate with what you're good at. And Dan Hurley is really good at coaching college basketball.
Yes, he
So
is.
he is maintaining that passion for what coaching college basketball means versus coaching professionals.
Yeah, I mean, people look at it from like an athlete's lens because you, as an athlete, your dream is to, you go to college and then go to the pros, okay? But sometimes it does not have to be like that for a coach. We saw that point in case Nick Saban, okay? Nick Saban belonged in college and he is going to go down as one of the greatest college head coaches of all time. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with that whatsoever. And Dan Hurley is an amazing basketball coach for UConn, and he's got a great program, a winning program, might I add, a program that is one of goes for a three-peat here. You're making a legendary name for yourself, and at the end of the day, I know that may not be what he wants, but he may not even want the money either. He loves the game, and he loves the game of basketball at the college level, and that's why I really think him staying at UConn was 100% the right move to do. And like David already said, going to the Lakers was the timing of it all was not right. You don't know. You have so much uncertainty of what's even going to go on there. What the heck's going on with LeBron? I know he does it. I don't want to say revolve around everything, but when you have a player like LeBron, you have to kind of make those decisions, and we don't know where he's going to go. And there's just a lot of uncertainty in that Lakers organization. Whereas at UConn, he knows what's going on. He recruited a lot of these players. He knows what the championship blueprint looks for UConn going into this next year. So, good decision, in my opinion, for Dan Hurley to stay at UConn.
Let
I
me
think
ask you guys this question though: do recruits that have been looking at UConn before this change their mind because they know Dan Hurley's being basically recruited himself to the NBA? Do those recruits then go to UNC or Duke or any of these other blue blood programs because they they're concerned that Dan Hurley's not going to be there for the full term?
if anything, I think it could possibly have the opposite effect because if I'm a recruit, then I'm looking at a guy who was being recruited by arguably the best franchise in the NBA, and not even those guys could take Dan Hurley. So it's like if I'm a recruit and I'm seeing a guy who said no to a team like that, then I'm thinking, well, I definitely want to play for him now.
Yeah, normally, Ed, that's how I would think of things too. Is seems kind of worrisome. I know ultimately he turned it down. Loyalty has always been a thing that's kind of up in the air nowadays at a lot of head coaching jobs and just college sports in general. But one thing that I saw, and I apologize, this seems kind of annoying that I'm switching, but when Nick Saban retired and Kalen DeBoer came there, we saw Alabama lose a lot of recruits, and then they gained a lot more. And even Ryan Day at Ohio State, he's been on the hot seat, and if he loses one more time to Michigan, he's going to lose the job. But Ohio State, number one recruiting class, for next year too, and it's like they're still going to get a lot of players wanting to go there. But with UConn, I think that they are going to benefit more from this.
I think I think it's funny that you mentioned Saban, Matthew, because I feel like the same reason why Saban ultimately failed in the NFL, I feel like could be potentially one reason why Dan Hurley could fail in the NBA, and that is Saban is a control freak, and Dan Hurley strikes me as a control freak. I mean, like let me ask you this: how many times do you see a college coach, whether it's football or basketball? How many times do you see a college coach like yelling, just having so much stress on their faces, just being like visibly angry during the game? Probably like 9 times out of 10. Now, how many times do you see that with NBA coaches? Other than Tom Thibodeau, I don't really see it a lot. Like, I've noticed NBA head coaches are a lot calmer. They're a lot more composed. And I have never seen Dan Hurley composed. It seems like every time I'm watching him uh, on the sidelines, he's always yelling. And I'm not saying he's stressed. He's coaching. It's not like he's angry or under a ton of stress. He's just coaching. But I'm just saying that style of coaching works for a college, but I don't see how it could possibly translate to the NBA. I'm not saying he would not be a successful NBA coach. Just circling back, all I'm saying is that Dan Hurley, being a control freak, I could see that being ultimately hindering him from being good in the NBA, in my opinion.
And you take a look at the college schedule versus an NBA schedule. College schedule, you're playing 2 games a week. You can have you can be demonstrative a as a coach in college, but when you have 3 games in 7 days, or because they're trying to stretch them out even more, uh, then you don't you can't have the energy of yelling at referees and the floor and everything around you for 48 minutes, that over that long a time, that short a time period. So the amount of energy that it would take to be that demonstrative on a game in, game out basis for an NBA coach is just, it's a ridiculous amount of energy that would be necessary. In college, you can do that for 40 minutes twice a week. It's fine. But that's why you see a lot of these NBA coaches be so calm and just accepting and moving into the next phase, because they can't expel that much more energy than their players are just standing up and yelling for 2 hours.
Yeah. Yep. But I think one of the biggest questions after this is where do the Lakers go from here? They left here scratching their head. I mean, they're like, we're the Lake Show. Why are we not appealing to anyone anymore?
I
They
mean,
they haven't been a really good team for a long time at this point.
Yeah.
yeah. And I was actually just thinking about this before we got on set. But I think the Lakers they're facing a real dilemma because I think ultimately LeBron is a huge reason why why coaches don't want to come there. And I think it's a huge reason at least why Dan Hurley didn't want to go there because of the pressure that LeBron alone adds. But on the flip side of things, he is still LeBron James at the end of the day, and you're not just going to get rid of him. So I think the Lakers are. I think I think they're kind of in a rut right now. They're in basketball purgatory, is what I would like to call it.
Well, I have heard reports that they are restarting their coaching search and they want to have it done by the draft, which happens at the end of this month. So they've got to figure something out fairly quickly, whether it's trying to get JJ Redick after
Dude,
he's done calling games.
there is no way. There's like if I'm JJ Redick, like, well, hold up, like. You're only coming after me because the other guy said no to you. No, go after yourselves. I don't want anything to do with you.
Well,
Just
that
up
would be
up my
every other
price.
coach that they ask.
Yeah.
What's that?
Yeah, just up my price.
Yeah, yeah. But what'd you say, Ed?
I said, well, that would be every other coach that they ask.
True, but they were especially like, I mean, well, okay, were they even that interested in JJ Redick, or was that just a bunch
I,
of?
I don't think the organization was that interested in JJ Redick. It's LeBron that was interested in JJ Redick
Yeah, yeah,
after
that's
they
that's
started their
what I
podcast together.
Yeah,
thought.
sound like something a little fishy happening there. But yeah, you want a coach before the draft comes. That is important. It may get to the point to where they get a little risky on who they're really going to hire and how much money they're going to throw their way. So if you're a coach out there, use that as a bargaining chip.
Okay,
Absolutely.
how's this for a name? And this is just totally random, and but you guys remember PJ Carlissimo?
Uh huh.
Yeah.
That's just the name I'm going to throw out there as a potential candidate for the Lakers.
The NBA is such a recycled coach league at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I I wouldn't be surprised if you saw Doc Rivers go there at some
Yeah.
point.
No, my favorite is anytime there's a head coaching vacancy, Mark Jackson's name's always thrown in there. Mark Jackson.
Yeah.
So it's always Mark Jackson, you know. But
You'd
Well,
yeah,
rather
and the Lakers have to, figure out what the future is for their power forward slash GM on their roster right now. So,
we talking about Jerry Jones or Jackie Moon. So
well, they're certainly
dude,
not trading him for a washing machine. That's for sure.
yeah,
real quick, I gotta because you mentioned Doc Rivers. I have to share this. I saw something absolutely hysterical on Twitter, but apparently there's a basketball movie about we're about Doc Rivers, and Lawrence Fishburne played
Mhm.
Doc Rivers, and apparently Lawrence Fishburne had never even heard of Doc Rivers, and in the tweet where I saw that, someone left a reply that said, "Well, neither one of them know anything about basketball, so perfect role for him."
Yeah, Hulu made this miniseries about the Clippers during the Doc Brown era, the
they Doc
Doc
Rivers.
Rivers era.
They
Doc
they
Rivers,
they both are living in the Matrix.
Right, and it's
uh,
Al Bundy that's playing the owner of the Clippers.
yeah.
hey, go Steelers. Gosh, yeah, that's gonna be an interesting one. But yeah, I'm just glad you brought that up, David, because I literally saw that too right before the show. So that was pretty comical.
Yeah.
But what's also comical is the United States women's Olympic basketball team leaving out Caitlin Clark. This is a big topic. It seems like Caitlin Clark is actually a big topic for a while now. We constantly talk about her, and the reason we talk about her is one, she is good. She is that good, and two, she is getting disrespected on many levels, uh, pretty much since she made it to the WNBA, and this is just the newest edition of what is happening to her, and it's very unfortunate. But to play devil's advocate, I know Team USA has been building this team for the last several years, so I do want to put that out there. But the fact that Caitlin Clark is not on the team, one is a big mistake. I'm not saying she would have won it for you, but marketing standpoint, that it would have been genius. Two, it's not like she's just this bad player that has a big name. She is an amazing basketball player with a big name, so that would have helped as well. She would have just been wasting a roster spot, in my opinion. So I know she missed some practices because she was in the Final Four. Oh, might I add, she brought that team to the Final Four.
Mhm.
Another reason to add her there. She missed it for good reasons because she brought that Iowa team to fame with how great she was and brought them to a national championship game where they lost. But I just really feel like this is a carousel. It's just is going around and around again. It's the same thing repeating where she's getting disrespected, and I just don't see it as fair.
You could easily make a case for both sides of this argument when you're talking about this because the U.S. Team USA's justification is they've had a team selected for several years now that they didn't have any other rookies on. It's an older team, and it's a team that you have some of the more dominant players over time that are on this team. They're not necessarily in the top 12 players that are taking up the top 12 spots of Team USA, but they have been dominant in their time, and they've been there for the practices and the offensive systems and the implementation of uh, the systems that that team is going to run. But also, this is a Team USA team that is a total of 70-3 since they got started in the Olympics, and they haven't lost a game since. I don't know if y'all were born yet when they lost their last game. It has been that long, but the players that they put on this team, you're talking about Brittany Griner and Diana Taurasi. Well, Taurasi's 42, and she's not one of the top 12 players. Brittany Griner spent a good amount of time in a Russian jail and missed practices that they were talking about implementing these systems. So I don't want to necessarily hear about, oh, well, she missed practices. Well, guess what? You don't need her to get you over the hump. You don't need Caitlin Clark to get you over the hump. You need Caitlin Clark to sell your league to worldwide audiences like the NBA is doing.
Mm-hmm.
And when the worldwide stage sees Caitlin Clark play, then they will pick up the WNBA as well. This is a this is a player that when she's on the floor, they have twice as many tickets sold. They have 283% raise in merchandise since she came into the league. And there is, I believe, a 45% jump in viewership on off of ratings when she is on the floor. She got pulled from a game because the Fever were being blown out a few days ago. She missed the entire fourth quarter because it wasn't worth it. And the 17,000, which normally their attendance is somewhere around 8, the 17,000 fans that were in the stands were chanting her name to get back on the floor because that's who they paid to see.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Ed wasn't exaggerating when he said 8. He meant 8 people, not 8,000. So I want to put that out there.
Yeah, I mean, the people of the WNBA have utterly exposed themselves as the biggest idiots on the face of this earth. Because for the first time, and probably the last time ever, you finally have a golden opportunity for exposure, and you're just taking a big, massive dump all over it. And after this season, I truly and sincerely hope the WNBA crashes and burns with the way that they've been treating Caitlin Clark, because that is exactly what these clueless dummies deserve.
And it's not just Caitlin Clark that they're treating poorly. They're treating any members of media or attention that they could get, they're treating those people poorly. Why would those people want to follow the WNBA when it's full of people that hate them for asking questions about basketball, which that's what they do?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And when the media people are asking questions in a press conference, which press conferences are kind of dumb, let's be honest, but the journalists have to get their sound bites, they have to get their clips, they have to get their quotes so they can create their stories to put in their column inches on their publication, whether it be paper or internet or video. they These players are turning around and being very combative of the people that are there to try and help them get more attention, which guess what? They gripe about not getting any money. Well, you don't get any money without any attention. And when you are combative to the people that give you attention, you're just pissing away money that you say that you want, but you don't really because it's not on your terms.
It's exactly why I say that I hope the WNBA crashes and burns, because they're pissing all over the only golden opportunity they're ever going to get. I hope they fall apart and it'll be all their fault.
it sounds like they should be labeled the Mean Girls, and this kind of has like a resemblance of the '92 Dream Team the whole Michael Jordan, Isaiah Thomas situation. Well, this is the entire WNBA and Caitlin Clark. The entire WNBA is behind closed doors saying, you know, that white girl from Iowa, let's not include her on the roster. You know who we should have is that girl who was in a Russian jail for about a year, who's also coming back from a foot injury. She was on 60 Minutes, if you remember her. It might have been the lowest rated 60 Minutes of all time, but she was
Mhm.
on there. That Brittany Griner girl. Let's make sure she's on the team because that's really going to garnish views, not Caitlin Clark. And that's where, to Ed's point, to David's point, is why they are just shooting themselves in their own foot. They want to do it their way, even though the numbers tell you it's like the people, 1 + 1 = 2, but to them, they
Mhm.
want it to equal 3 because they're the ones who did it.
Yeah, and I'm sure you know this, but you bring up Michael Jordan, infamously keeping Isaiah Thomas off the team. But of course, the NBA already had great exposure. Like if the WNBA had good exposure, then keeping Caitlin Clark off the Olympics team wouldn't be as big of a deal. But as you said, Ed, they need all the exposure that they can get, and as I keep saying, they keep pissing all over that.
Yeah, and Matthew, you said a word in there that gets thrown around, but it's not part of the lexicon when you're talking about Caitlin Clark being part of this USA team, and that's inclusion.
Inclusion.
Everything's inclusion until you start talking about the white girl that is giving your team, your league exposure and creating money opportunities for you.
Diversity is our strength, y'all.
Well, that is exactly what it is. I mean, I hate to burst people's bubbles out there, but that is the reason why. I mean, there's no sugarcoating to it. That is exactly the reason why, and it's unfortunate that that's what we've come to this day. And we talked about it before with the treatment she's been getting on a physicality standpoint in her rookie year. And it's the same concept here as if the roles were reversed, it would be all hell. You'd have Jesse Jackson, you'd have Al Sharpton all over this. So the fact that it's the other way around, crickets.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I'm gonna say about that. But enough with that negativeness. We've got an exercise here that I've been looking forward to all day. And it's exercise I want all you guys to be a part of too, especially in the comments. So listen carefully here and put your input in the comments section. But the other day I saw a buddy of ours post this picture online. He might not have been the one who created it, but he posted it, and it was 4 players, college football quarterbacks. Who was the greater quarterback of them? And you had Tim Tebow, you had Cam Newton, you had Vince Young, and you had Stetson Bennett. Well, we're not going to do exactly that, but we are going to do something similar, and we are going to change it to who has been the best 2-time national championship quarterback since 2000. The 4 players are Matt Leinart, USC, Tim Tebow of Florida, AJ McCarron of Alabama, and Stetson Bennett of Georgia. And this is going to be a really fun exercise. So go ahead and drop in the comments if you have someone now, if you heard their name already, that who you feel. But I talked to David before this show started, and I said this is where it gets interesting to me, and this is why I love this topic so much. Is how do you personally define greatness? Because every person you ask that question may give you a different definition. So there's no right answer here. Whatever we're going to say here, there's not like a right answer. We're not a judge. There's not a judge here saying this, but I think it is an interesting topic to talk about here. So I mean, the floor is you guys', David, Ed, whoever wants to go first here, but we've got some great quarterbacks here. There's no denying that.
I'll go first. If we're talking about the greatest two-time national champion quarterback, where he was actually a main contributing factor, I'm going to take Matt Leinart. Now, if we're talking about the greatest college quarterback who happened to win 2 championships, then I'm going to take Tim Tebow because, as we all know, Tebow was not the starting quarterback in 2006 because Urban Meyer ran a 2 QB system with Tebow and Chris Leak. So again, best 2-time national champion college quarterback where he was actually a main factor, Matt Leinart. But best college quarterback who happened to win 2 championships, Tim Tebow.
That's certainly a fair point on that. I I'm going to eliminate Stetson Bennett, and it's not even for a national championship game. It's because without the play of Brock Bowers reaching for a first down on a fourth down in the SEC championship game against Alabama, they don't even make it to the national championship game, and his whole thing is a moot point. It's like a cow's opinion. It's moo. It's it doesn't matter. So AJ McCarron, I feel like he was more of a cog in the wheel when it came to Saban's teams. As college football started to evolve around that time, the Alabama, ground and pound and beat you up at the line of scrimmage, that was in full effect right there. And it was all about the running backs during that time period of Alabama football. So they're not he's not there for me. David, I'm with you. It's one or the other. It's Tebow or Leinart. And I'm as as much as I hate to say it, I'm going to say Tebow. Uh, I don't necessarily hate to say it. I don't know why I said that. Uh, but Tebow, he was such such a good on the field player, but he was more of a leader for that locker room, top to bottom, 1 to 100 and however many they had on the roster at that time. He was the focal point. Even if he's not the starting quarterback, he was still playing quarterback and rotating in. I remember those short yardage situations where he was just a bowling ball, getting the getting the team down the field. Well, when you are winning that many games and that consistently good, and being being the point where everybody in the country is after you, that to me, I feel is better than what Leinart did because of a difference of distributing and being the focal point of the offense. There's a big, to me, there's a difference there. Leinart, I felt, was very much a distributor to so many awesome weapons that he had around him. And Tim Tebow, he had great weapons with him, but he was still the guy, no matter without question.
I think you hit the nail on the head, uh, Ed. I actually almost called you Tebow. You hit the nail on the head, Tebow. But yeah, I think, and I've seen people discredit Tebow because yes, it is true that Tebow played with the stacked roster, and I'm sure he'll be the first one to tell you that. But ultimately, it was his leadership that made the difference for the Gators. And when we lost to Ole Miss. I'm telling you, we do not win the championship, let alone make the championship game, if Tebow does not make that speech. And as we all saw, he didn't just talk the talk, he walked the walk. Because after Ole Miss, we just straight up murdered every other team on our schedule.
Yeah, and to further your point, Ed, on the Stetson Bennett, that perfect timeout call by Kirby Smart on what would have been a fake punt by Ohio State in the playoff game
Mm-hmm.
also would have changed the trajectory of that game too. So I mean, I'm sure that could be said almost for any national championship team, but Ohio State was that close, that close. Not only the field goal too that they shanked, but that fake
Mm-hmm.
punt that was probably clear as day going to result in probably a touchdown
Well,
or a first down.
not only that, but and correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't Ohio State up big? They were up by like 14, 15. Like, weren't they up pretty big on Georgia at some point in the game?
I think they were up for in double digits, but it was a little earlier in the game. Maybe in the first half.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't remember that clearly.
and then obviously Marvin Harrison Jr. getting knocked out of the game was a benefit to Georgia as well. So there's a couple different factors, but uh, I'm riding the same boat as you guys here as far as Stetson Bennett, AJ McCarron. I do have a lot of memories of the dominance, or at least that Alabama dominance team that they had at that time. But it has to come down to Tim Tebow and Matt Leinart here, and if you want to get technicality and say, all right, we said quarterback, then it would have to be Leinart because Tebow, as we know, especially with the two QB system and a lot more of what he did, uh, I wouldn't say disqualifies him, but Matt Leinart, we know where, quarterback strictly and being the starting quarterback for those 2 years, winning that is of note. But Tim Tebow, if you ever watched Tim Tebow play, but if you ever watched Swamp Kings, it's on Netflix, you get to see that Gator team when Tebow joined it. Um, Tebow is a madman. He is insane. He was the leader of the weight room. He was the leader of every workout outside of there. Uh, Tim Tebow's an incredible player. He's an incredible person, and those two go hand in hand in me when I say this because that's the reason why Tebow was as great as he was. He put everything he had in not only into playing, but as the kind of person he is. And when you have someone that's like that, we all know how much his faith means to him, which of course is high on my list regardless. But he put 100% in everything that he did because that's the kind of player he was. And that's why it showed when he played at Florida, two national championships, and a lot of those were contributed by him because of what he did for that Florida Gators team. And that's why I'd have to also put Tebow there also.
the fact that the fact that Tebow played on the same team as Aaron Hernandez and Tebow somehow did not lose his mind, I think is just absolutely incredible. Because keep in mind, before Aaron Hernandez unfortunately did something they're not supposed to do, and that's commit murder. The dude was a literal psychopath. Like I read that when he was at Florida, I think he ruptured a bartender's ear, or he caused a serious injury to a bartender. So even before all that, crazy stuff went down, the dude was an actual psychopath. And how Tebow somehow did not lose his mind is just amazing to me.
Well, there's a reason why Tebow didn't go out and party. He didn't do any of that stuff.
Yeah.
And he was smart for that. He really was. I'm not saying just because you go out and do those things, you're dumb. I don't want that to come across at all. But Tebow had his priorities. Partying, going out was not his priorities. His faith was number one. Working his tail off in the weight room and practicing and getting better and being a better player was up there as well. So that's why I picked Tim Tebow. And there was a lot of stuff happening in that Florida team back then, more than just Aaron Hernandez. I mean,
Yes,
he had the
yes, it was.
He had the Pouncy twins too. There was a lot of craziness happening down there in the swamp.
The one thing that I took from the Swamp Kings was the fact that they had those midnight workouts to keep the players from going out and doing stupid stuff. And it worked, at least for that short time period.
Yeah.
But I didn't stop them when they left there. But I, that was, in my mind, that is maybe one of the best decisions that Urban Meyer made, uh, is to get those players, which they were a rowdy bunch, get them more controlled, get them more focused at a time in which they are normally out doing dumb stuff, by getting them in the weight room and really pushing those workouts. Because without that, they wouldn't have, they wouldn't have created that bond of being there until 3 in the morning, just pushing weights around. It's really one of the things that gets overlooked in my mind is the scheduling that Urban Meyer had for that team. And Tim Tebow was 100% on board with it. And that's another one of those situations where when you have a congruency between your head coach and starting quarterback, think good things are going to happen.
100%.
Things will click. So it sounds like once again we're in agreement when it comes to something like this. But
But
saying that,
wait. David, you chose Matt Leinart, and it's Matthew and me taking Tim Tebow.
I
What?
technically gave you
Are we
two.
in an upside down world? What happened here?
I technically gave you two answers. Okay, if we're just talking about quarterbacks who happen to win two championships, I'm taking Tim Tebow.
yeah, me and David are kind of pretty much have the same answer too when it comes to that. But we knew coming into this, we knew one of his answers was going to be Tebow, and I don't blame
Mhm.
him. Tebow was a great player. So
Young,
yeah,
if
of
Vince
note.
Young had stayed an extra year, he would be on my list.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, yep. But that's about all we have today, folks. Quick update. I know in the NBA Finals, last I saw was 93-90 Boston. So keep looking at that. There's only about 3 minutes or so left. So will Boston hold on to that lead and go up 3-0, or will Dallas then take over down the stretch and win this game? We will find out. But we appreciate you guys tuning in. And once again, drop in the comments who you think is, out of these four players we just mentioned, the greatest two-time national championship quarterback since 2000. And also hit that like and subscribe button, share these videos, and let people know where they could find their up-to-date sports news and trivia. We do drop that on here as well. But until next time, guys, we are rounding third, and we are headed for home.